What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 Squad? Welcome back into another video, and today we are continuing our 2020 Positional Preview Series for the New York Giants. Today we're talking about one of my favorite positions in football, period, and that is the running back position. You guys know it's in my username, KidBlueRB27. I love the running back position. I focus hard on the running back position, and I know how to critique them, and I'm wearing my Saquon jersey right now. So let's talk about the running backs for the New York Giants. Before I start this video, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button for me, as we'll be pumping out these Positional Preview Series videos every single day until we run out of positions. So with that being said, let's get started. The Giants running backs actually don't look too bad, and I know a lot of people may think, like in the beginning of last year in the 2019 season, a lot of people thought that it may be a little front heavy, being, having Saquon Barkley and then everybody else. But I actually think we have some sort of rushing attack behind Saquon Barkley, and we'll get into that in just a second. But let's talk about Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon was able to eclipse 1,000 yards last season despite having some terrible games like against Detroit and against the Jets, in which he had like probably 10 yards combined in those two games on like almost 30 attempts, and because he was hurt, as although he doesn't say he was hurt, but he was hurt, and he also missed 3 games in that season as well, and also left in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. He was still able to get 1,000 yards, and despite those terrible averages that he had against Detroit and the Jets, he was still able to have 4.6 yards per carry, which is insane. Some running backs can't even get to that mark in their careers, but Saquon Barkley was able to do it, and I'm telling you guys right now, if Saquon Barkley is 100% healthy, and by the way, guys, I have no concern of Saquon Barkley's health. This is the first time that he's ever been hurt, that he's ever missed time like this. High school, college, never been a problem. His rookie year, never been a problem. So this is kind of an outlier to me, that injury last year. I don't think Saquon Barkley will be a guy to constantly get hurt. I think he's going to come back stronger than ever and play to the best of his ability. And it also helps out with the new addition of offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett of the Dallas Cowboys. This is a guy that runs a scheme predicated on the run game, and especially with the Giants, getting 3 new offensive linemen in this year's draft, whether they start this year or not, tells me that the Giants are focusing on the offensive line and focusing on the rushing attack, which was totally different than what Pat Shurmur was doing with the Giants a couple of years ago in the past regime. There's a reason why I made the video that I think Saquon Barkley can be the MVP of the NFL in the 2020 season. If you guys haven't checked that out, I'll leave a card up above. Make sure you guys check that out after this video. So that being said, I don't have to go into detail on why I think he's going to be MVP. If you guys just click that video, you will know. But Saquon Barkley, in my honest opinion, he's going to have over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I'm going to guarantee that. It depends on what he gets after that to try to, especially his touchdowns as well, to try to get to that MVP marker, because Christian McCaffrey really set the standard high, because he didn't even get the MVP, and he was putting up MVP type numbers like LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson type numbers. So that being said, I think Saquon Barkley will remain the workhorse for the New York Giants. We then move on to the depth, and we'll start off with Dion Lewis, who was a surprise signing for me. The Giants don't really sign guys like Dion Lewis, and you can kind of equate Dion Lewis to like a poor man's Austin Eckler or Darren Sproles or Chris Thompson of the Washington Redskins. A scat back, smaller guy, built like a mini tank a little bit. Not really Dion Lewis is built like a mini tank, but he is a little bigger for his size. He's 5'8", 195 pounds, and I like Dion Lewis's game. Although I wish he ran the ball a lot more effectively, he still does a bit of the rushing game, but he also provides a lot in the passing game as well. Not too much in the passing game. He's kind of a guy that comes in on certain situations depending on obviously the down and the distance. He's definitely a gadget type player. He's not somebody I could see really spelling Saquon Barkley and really taking the lead as the second running back on the roster and really being a consistent guy like maybe Shane Vereen. When we first signed him, he was very consistent for us when it came to running and receiving the football. I don't really think he's going to be like a Shane Vereen type player from us. I just don't think he has that consistent production, and you see in his time with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the New England Patriots, in which he, for a player like him, he had a phenomenal year in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons when he was with the Patriots. He had almost 900 yards rushing, which is a lot for a running back like him who really isn't taking a part of an offense that much, but that year it was all Dion Lewis. That being said, I have a firm belief that Dion Lewis will make this roster. Make sure you guys tune in for later on in this video when I discuss the projected depth chart. We then move on to Wayne Gallman. Wayne Gallman is a guy that was beloved by me coming out of Clemson. I was watching him out of Clemson. I loved him out of Clemson. And, I was excited that we drafted him with our 4th round pick in the 2017 draft. I was really excited for him. I thought that, when Orleans Darkwa, if he were to kind of get signed away or go elsewhere, that Wayne Gallman would come right in and eventually be a starter for us, but it just never worked out. His rookie year was decent. He had about 476 yards on the ground, but he has a big fumbling problem. He has 6 fumbles in his career in the span of 3 years. That is not something you want to see from a running back, especially a guy that you want to come in on certain down situations to spell Saquon Barkley, a guy that's going to be consistent for you in the run game when Saquon Barkley isn't on the field. You don't want to have, you don't want to give Saquon Barkley the feeling that he needs to do everything himself. And Wayne Gallman was supposed to be that guy, but he just keeps fumbling the ball. And I think that's a huge reason of why he's never giving opportunities when in every year. I mean, he had that year where he almost had 500 yards rushing, but then the past 2 years besides that, he's never really given an opportunity to shine. Now, in the following week, after, I think it was against the Washington Redskins, after Saquon Barkley went down, this is week 4 last year, Wayne Gallman did phenomenally well in the passing game and the running game, but he just cannot stay consistent as he still had a fumbling problem. I think he had 1 fumble last year and he lost that fumble. He only had 29 attempts last year, which is bad, and he was for the most part healthy. He was hurt last year, but he was for the most part healthy. It's going to be very interesting to see that training camp battle between Dion Lewis and Wayne Gallman. We then move on to Jonathan Hilliman, and he was a fan favorite last year. He was a guy coming out of, I believe, Boston College, and he was a guy that reminded me of Andre Williams coming out of Boston College as well. Now, I believe he came out of Rutgers, but he spent most of his career with Boston College. And, I remember one game in particular against the New England Patriots where he was utilized. I think that was his first time to really shine. He had his moments. He had his moments where we were like, wow, Jonathan Hilliman isn't too bad, but then we also had his moments like, yeah, now we see why he's an undrafted free agent. He's definitely a guy that can be a good running back, as a 3rd or 4th option. I don't really see him being a 2nd option, and I don't really see him challenging the role of the 2nd running back behind like Wayne Gallman or Dion Lewis. I think it's going to be a competition between those guys, and then Jonathan Hilliman is going to have to fight and see if the Giants carry 4 running backs on the depth chart next year. I don't envision that happening just because Saquon Barkley is Saquon Barkley, and maybe with his injury issues, maybe they'll keep 4 running backs, who knows, but we definitely need a lot of wide receivers, so I imagine that roster spot will go to a wide receiver instead of a running back. But Jonathan Hilliman is a power runner. He is a little bit on the smaller side. He's not terribly big. He's not very big, but I mean, he reminds me a lot of Frank Gore, if you guys know Frank Gore, or Jonathan Stewart. He's smaller, but he's thicker, and he runs, and he's like a bowling ball. He runs right into the offensive line and tries to fight his way through. I really like his play style. I just wish he were to get more consistent. I wish he would get better. I mean, for lack of a better term, I wish he would just get better. Jonathan Hilliman is a good option as a 3rd or 4th running back. I could definitely see him making this roster. He would have to beat out even Wayne Gallman. Say if Dion Lewis wins that 2nd running back spot, he would then have to beat out Wayne Gallman, which I think is a little bit more doable than Dion Lewis. But he would definitely have to beat out Wayne Gallman. That's if the Giants only keep 3 running backs. They may keep 4. Who knows? But we then move on to another guy that a lot of people have been talking about lately, and that is Javon Leake, the undrafted free agent out of Maryland. Now, Javon Leake is a very interesting prospect because I feel like a lot of people love Javon Leake based on what they've seen on highlights in Maryland. Remember, he was a backup for Anthony McFarland, the starting running back for Maryland, who went on to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Javon Leake is a guy that came in and spelled Anthony McFarland and did pretty well. I mean, he averaged 7.2 yards on the ground in college. Now, in college, that's not really a super fantastic number, because in college, all of these stats are like crazy inflated because of the way college football is played. So, I mean, if you put that in NFL terms, it's phenomenal in NFL terms, but it's good in college football. 7.2 yards per carry on the ground. He had 762 yards, I believe, on the ground, and he played pretty well. And watching him on film, he doesn't look very agile. His hips are extremely stiff, and I'm telling you guys right now, and I hope the camera's on me now, I hope that you don't see the graphic. Listen to me when I say this. I know running backs, okay? I watch running backs all the time. Hell, I was a running back. I know I'm not a guru. I'm not going to sit here and say that I could be a running backs coach in the NFL, but I know running backs. I have a knack for these things. And Javon Leake had legit the worst combine I've ever seen from a running back in my entire life. I've been watching combine since about 2015. Maybe I could get Javon Leake in for an interview and talk to him about his combine performance. I know he probably wasn't very excited about it as well, but I did not like his combine. He was messing up on drills. He looked extremely stiff when running routes and moving around, running wheel routes and things like that. He just looked so stiff. I don't think he was catching the football right either, if I remember correctly. I can't find his combine highlights anywhere because he doesn't have any highlights. But Javon Leake on film is a lot better on film, right? I see him in the combine. I didn't like what I saw at all. I just stay away from him. And this is before the Giants even got him. I mean, this is during the combine. I'm watching him live, and I'm like, wow, this Javon Leake is not good. But I watched him on film, and I like what he brings. He's a one-cut guy, very similar to Tevin Coleman. He really reminds me of Tevin Coleman. A little slower, but really reminds me of Tevin Coleman. He's a one-cut guy. When he sees the hole, he's blazing right through it. On top of that, one thing that, and also this is the type of guy I am too, for whatever reason we run straight up like this and we're very stiff and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's the way I played as well. Very straight up type runner like Tevin Coleman was at Indiana, and I definitely see a huge similarity there between Javon Leake and Tevin Coleman. So maybe Javon Leake has a future in the NFL. Maybe not with the Giants, maybe with the Giants. Who knows? But I like Javon Leake, but I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to make the team. I think everybody needs to slow down on that. We then move on to our last running back, and this one is probably one of the most interesting. That's why I saved him for last. And this is a guy that the Giants had to sign as a part of the NFL International Player Pathway Program, which I didn't even know existed, but I love it. The fact that, a division, obviously 4 teams in one division, a division is tasked with finding a foreign player in other leagues and bringing them to the NFL just for a tryout, just to see what would happen, just to try to kind of internationalize the football as a whole and kind of unite us all as one, like the NBA does, right? The NBA gets talent from foreign places, like freaking, I don't know, all these other countries, China and all that stuff, right? In the NBA. So the NFL is starting to dabble in that a little bit, and I'm extremely excited for it. I'm all for it. And we have one player of our own, running back Sandro Platzgummer, running back from the Austrian Football League. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not saying this because he's white, but he reminds me a lot of Christian McCaffrey, okay? This guy has some moves. You want to talk about a night and day type of play from Javon Leake and Sandro Platzgummer? Javon Leake is very stiff. Sandro Platzgummer is the opposite of stiff. This guy is as fluid as you can find in a running back. His hips are extremely loose. He's able to move around with all type of articulation and tilt and bend and juke and stutter step and everything. I mean, he knows these running back moves, and he is a good size too. He's like 200, just about 200 pounds, I believe, 6 foot. I mean, he's a pretty good size, very agile. Now, I'm going to slow my roll here. This is the Austrian Football League. We don't even know how good this league is, and I cannot find any stats on the guy. As much as I try to look, but I can't find any stats on him. But from what I can see, I think he's a very good player. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to make the team. I don't know how he's going to do. A lot of these players from other leagues and even the rugby league try to go into the NFL. They have very great highlights from where they're from, but when they come into the NFL, it's a whole different ballpark. It's a whole different game. Just a quick little editor's note here, as I had the fullbacks in my notes but forgot to mention them in the video, so I quickly have to talk about the fullbacks. The fullbacks need love too, being that they are traditionally running backs as well. They're primarily classified as running backs as well. So Elijah Penny is the first guy we're going to talk about, and Elijah Penny is a guy that can actually run the football. He does well as a running back and does well as a traditional fullback in run blocking and in the receiving game. And we've seen him most notably against the New England Patriots running the ball back when we had no running backs on the roster, when Jonathan Hilliman also got hurt in that game as well, I believe. So Elijah Penny definitely does a lot for us, and I have high hopes that he will be our fullback next year. And we then move on to George Aston. I'm sorry. He was a Denver Broncos fullback, and back when Andy Janovich last year was hurt in the beginning of the year, a lot of people were thinking that George Aston could be the guy to take the role as the starting fullback, and I guess that didn't happen, and now he's wind up with the Giants. So it's going to be interesting to see the competition that Elijah Penny has. But yeah, very excited to see these guys play, and I definitely project Elijah Penny to win that role. So let's get on to our projected depth chart. We look at last year, the Giants only kept 3 running backs to start out with, and then Saquon Barkley got hurt, then Wayne Gallman got hurt, and we had to get anybody we can get. And so it was a mess last year as far as the running back position goes, but I only imagine the Giants keeping 3 running backs. Why? Because Saquon Barkley is Saquon Barkley. And so we don't need 3 running backs behind him. This is definitely not a running back by committee type offense. This is a one running back guy, a workhorse type offense, and guys that can spell Saquon Barkley. We'll see who those guys are. But my projected depth chart will go Saquon Barkley, Dion Lewis, and Wayne Gallman. I have high hopes for Sandro Platzgummer. I want to see something from Javon Leake, and Jonathan Hilliman is another guy that can be put on the practice squad and wait his turn like he did last year and eventually got a role on the offense. So I'm excited to see that, but I don't see the Giants keeping 4 running backs. I just see them keeping 3, so there's going to be some talent lost here, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see if Sandro finds another place, but I want to know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. What do you guys think of the running back position for the New York Giants in 2020? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Woo!